Jake DeBrusk has spoken out about leaving the Bruins and many things that occurred while his tenure with the Bruins was not going his way. Multiple trade requests have revealed that he wanted out. We're going to be talking about everything that he had said, many quotes from a recent podcast that he has, as well as a bit of trivia at the end of this video, as well as a few other things sprinkled in here in this video. But before we get into all of this news here, you notice that 75% of you guys watching right now are not subscribed to the channel. Don't press spot to get all of your Boston Bruins news. You're in the right spot. Make sure to hit the sub button. Join me here on this channel as we cover everything that the Boston Bruins have to offer in this offseason. And before we get into it though, I do apologize if you can hear my fan. It is very hot right now, and I will turn into a puddle if it is not on. So if you can hear that in the background, I do apologize, although you shouldn't, so we should be good. But let's get into our first topic here, which is obviously the big one in Jake DeBrusk. He's spoken out on the Bruins and kind of the departure and what led to this moment. And from what we've seen, from what we're hearing from Jake DeBrusk in this recent interview, it seems like this is a long time coming. And Jake DeBrusk was a guy I really kind of wanted to keep on this team. Very, very good in the playoffs this season. Was very streaky, although, in the regular season this year and the past season. So really, you can't keep a guy just for the playoffs, especially on a contract that Jake DeBrusk currently has and what he wanted. So it was really not feasible, although he was a player that if he could have gotten cheap, I think he would have been a great keep for this team. But I'll pull up our first screenshot here, and this is what he had. This is, big part of the article here first. I'll go into a bit of quotes after. DeBrusk recently appeared on the Cam and Strick podcast where he discussed the offseason, how his tenure with the Bruins came to an end. One of the most interesting topics that the three spoke about was DeBrusk's attempt to leave the Bruins before hitting free agency. According to DeBrusk, he requested a trade out of Boston twice during his career there. One we knew about. The other one, though, this is brand new news to us. And it also goes on to continue and says this. DeBrusk had a tough stretch with the Bruins a few seasons ago. In 2021, the team's healthy scratched him during a playoffs, resulting in a first request to be traded. The issue settled over the few months, but as the 2021-2022 season began, DeBrusk was still unhappy, which is why he requested a trade again. Only this time the request became public, and the media ran wild with it. Thankfully, his teammates were there and had his back in this difficult stretch. And then Jake DeBrusk went on kind of discuss about what happened with this, what played out, and this whole scenario of these trade requests. And this is what he had to say. They're pretty interesting ones as well. He said, "I asked for a trade in the summer, which, with the way the game was, with the way the team was shaping up, when it came to just where I was looking, where I could possibly play in the lineup and things like that, and kind of how the year ended. I got scratched in the playoffs, and I just thought it's time for maybe just a fresh start from both sides." He goes on to continue and says this time, when it came out, it was very uncomfortable. This was discussing the second trade that ended up coming out. It was very uncomfortable going into the rink the next day and talk to the guys in the room. The guys that were there were the biggest reason why I got out of that situation, that side of things. They had my back. They were with me throughout it all, and they were all good to me. They understood why in the room. They knew it was just me trying to find a better fit for my career, to have a longer NHL career, and to find a better chance at something. And Jake DeBrusk finally did get that, now going to the Vancouver Canucks, where I'm expecting him to have another great season, a big bounce back season from what we've seen in the past. But Jake DeBrusk, no longer the Bruins' problem. And I don't like to use the word problem, especially for Jake DeBrusk, where he was good, but it just didn't fit. He just didn't have that full, I don't want to say opportunity, because he definitely had that, but he couldn't get to the best of his potential with the Boston Bruins. But now the additions they made this offseason, and more additions that will be made in the future, I think this was the right move. Hopefully Jake DeBrusk can turn it around in Vancouver and really start to play well throughout the season. But pretty interesting that the few trade requests that he had made kind of got out, didn't go his way, and that really ultimately led to what we're seeing now with Jake DeBrusk being a Vancouver Canuck. But let's head on to our second topic here of this video, which is the Bruins are outside of the Stanley Cup odds, according to some sports books. And this is quite the interesting one, after what many Bruins fans thought and are pretty confident in. This is going to be a better team next season than what we had this previous season. They're lower than where they were last season in the Stanley Cup odds. Now, obviously, it's very early. None of this is set in stone. There are many more moves that could be made and still probably will be made before the first game of next season to make this team better. But from what we know right now, from what we have seen, despite a handful of early offseason moves, the Bruins still find themselves outside looking in to hoist the Stanley Cup next season based on the latest NHL betting odds. At a plus 2,000 odds, Boston currently has the 11th best. Meanwhile, the Edmonton Oilers and Florida Panthers occupy the first two spots, following their instant classic series and this year's Stanley Cup final. The Dallas Stars round out the top three of the plus 1,000. Even though the Bruins eliminated them from the postseason, the Toronto Maple Leafs have the best cup odds within the Atlantic Division at plus 1,500. So really interesting here to see how many sports books and, I'm assuming analysts will have to be involved in this as well, think that the Bruins offseason went. I'm saying this team got much better. I'm saying this team should absolutely have a higher odds to win the Stanley Cup, early projections, I'll say, than what they did last season. And having them 11th, I'm going to call that middle of the NHL. That's pretty tough. And this is going to be a great opportunity for the Bruins to prove a lot of people wrong. It's a nice bet to place if you were to bet, if you were someone who bets and can bet. Wouldn't be a bad option to say that they could be a deep playoff team, maybe Stanley Cup team, hopefully. And, from the additions we've seen, as I mentioned, the additions, the changes that this team had going out, this team really should be on the higher end of that. And I'm going to pull up a screenshot here from Daily Faceoff. This discussing their biggest strength. This article is from their top prospects, but I'm not going to discuss that here in this video. I want to discuss this, kind of get an idea of how much better this team got than what they were last year. And so they have their biggest strengths. The team might have too many centers, funny enough. That's not something many teams can say, but the Bruins have a boatload of players with some bottom six potential who primarily play down the middle. Many of them will switch to the wing if they were to make it to the NHL, but it's never a bad thing to load up here. The Bruins also have a handful of decent goaltending options. Jeremy Swayman is obviously the number one, but 26-year-old Brandon Busty is intriguing, and Michael DiPietro is coming off the best pro season to date. Both are too old to be considered prospects at this point, but still have a lot of freedom to still make a career for themselves with the Boston Bruins. Not anywhere else, but with the Boston Bruins still. So, those additions, the Bruins have a tough situation at center last year, not really having that number one. What they had worked out, but you still wanted to see better. Now, being better on the center and the center dot, having a lot of those players that can move the wing, the goaltending situation, we're going to have Swayman as a full goalie this year. The defense is getting better. Although teams did get better, the Boston Bruins were still one of the top in the NHL, and having them still as low as they are in the odds, not a fan of this. Let me know what you think about those odds, for those who understand. If you don't, just basically say they're in the middle of the road. That's the best way. So let me know what you think about the Bruins technically being in the middle of the pack for a Stanley Cup, a little Stanley Cup playoff and win, we'll say. But let's head on to our final topic here, which is a bit of trivia. This time of season, the news is pretty slow, so I wanted to pull one up here that happened on one of our favorite TV shows in Jeopardy. I will pull this up, and I will give you some answers, or the option to answer in the comments below. I'm not going to put the answer here, but I'll probably put it in the description for those who are wondering. It's not a bad one, but this is the NHL franchise turning 100 in 2024. Gets its name from a Dutch color word. So, I'll leave this up for a moment. Put your guesses or answers in the comments below, and I will go ahead and like all of them that are correct. This should be a pretty easy one to start off with. If I can see any more like this, I might continue this. This could be pretty fun, but, let me know what you think about all this news. As well, I want to see the answer to this question in the comments. Like I said, I will go ahead and like all of them that are correct. But that's all I got in this video. If you did enjoy it, give it a like, hit the sub button as well. Let me know what you think about all of the news that we have here today. But I am signing out now. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a great day. See you later.